Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Allow me to interrupt your train of thought with something that may be one of the most interesting things you hear today. This is Marianne-pestana, and our special guest today is Dorothy Husen, and she's here to share with us her new book, Breaking the Chains of Transgenerational Trauma, My Journey from Surviving to Thriving. I know a lot of people have questions in regards to what is transgenerational trauma, and we're going to dive into that today. Now, Dorothy is a licensed marriage and family therapist and has lived most of her adult life with complex post-traumatic stress disorder due to childhood trauma. The hidden chronic stress from her childhood developed into physical chronic illness decades later, when it was discovered at age 48, and in therapy for the first time, she discovered the truth at what has been holding her back in life. So let's welcome to the show, Dorothy Husen.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your book. Once I saw your book, I knew we needed to speak because you touch on some really some very interesting things that I don't think that a lot of people have knowledge about.
It is becoming, I think, more and more knowledgeable, or people are talking more about it. But yeah, it is something new, transgenerational trauma, how we pass on trauma through generation to generation.
Well, and why did you feel now was the right time to share not just your story, but also this book?
It happens to correlate with my own healing journey, because I started writing it as a therapeutic tool to heal from my own transgenerational trauma. And then it evolved over 3 years of writing to the point where I wanted to help other people. And so that's why it's come out recently. It took me a long time to figure out how to write my story so that other people would be able to read it, listen to it, enjoy it, and be able to help themselves. So relate to it.
Well, I know your story there's a lot of very honest discussion in regards to things that had happened to you as a child and other things that had happened as well. Was it difficult for you to include those parts in this story?
It was really difficult, really difficult. It was a conscious decision to not hold anything back. I did hold some things back, but so those of you who haven't read my book, I was sexually abused as a child, and then how that sexual abuse, how I dealt with it, which was basically denying it and repressing it and trying to forget it. But then how it affected my relationships for the rest of my life until I was able to deal with it. So being a therapist now, I'm privileged and honored to listen to other people's secrets and shame that they've held their whole lives, just as I did. And it's the telling of it, it's the getting it out and being able to get that secret out is what's so helpful. So that's why I thought I have to write about it, because that's the only thing that's going to help people is if I write about it, if I tell my story.
Well, it's interesting because, you really did share your story in a way that I thought was helpful for people that can identify with that, because there are a lot of people who have gone through the same thing, and maybe they're looking at ways on how to deal with it. And the interesting piece that I had not heard before was transgenerational trauma. And I'd love for you to share with our listeners a little bit more about what that is.
It's trauma, that bad things that happen to us, like hard things that happen to us, how we deal with them, and then how we deal with them gets transferred between the relationship, the special relationship between a parent and a child, because we've evolved to the place that we are, that we can survive. And we survive by our parents teaching us how they survived. And the problem is that society has, I think, changed so drastically and so fast that the way my mom and dad survived wasn't relevant to me as a child. So my mom survived her trauma in World War II, and my dad as well, through going into that fight response. There's the fight, flight, freeze response. And she would go into fight. And that's how she tried to teach me subconsciously. It's passed subconsciously. And it didn't work because there was no war going on when I was a kid. And so when I was sexually abused, she went into fight and was unattuned to what I really needed. And so that's how the trauma gets passed on, is this disconnect or this misattunement between a parent and a child. And then the same thing happened when I raised my kids. I raised my kids going into freeze all the time. Every time there was a problem or a conflict or difficulty, I would freeze. And again, it would cause that disconnect. I was unable to attune to what my child really needed from me. And that's how my trauma transferred to my children. And until we break that cycle, which is to heal our own trauma. When I healed my own trauma, childhood trauma, then I was able to attune to and connect to my children in a completely different way. And it was very freeing for them and me as well.
Well, when you talk about attunement, what does that look like? If we're out of attunement, and then what does it look like if we get into alignment and connection with them?
Well, for example, when I became a mom and I was raising my kids, I wanted my kids to be happy. I really, as most parents do, probably, we want our children to be happy. But I was unable to attune to what would make them happy. I was only connected to what made me happy. And what made me happy when I was a kid was doing things. Like I couldn't really connect to people, so I joined sports and I read books and I watched TV. That's the only thing that I knew would make my kids happy. So I tried to put them into sports and put them into art classes and teach and put them into music classes, but it didn't make them happy. What they needed was me to connect to them and ask them questions and how are you feeling? What songs do you like? Would you like to go out and play ball or kick the ball? Or how do you feel about that? That's attunement, is like trying to ask questions and figure out what makes my child feel happy, instead of just the way I feel. And the way I felt was mostly unhappy most of the time. And that's kind of what transferred. What transferred was my unhappiness.
Oh my gosh. But we see so many parents doing that, not that they intend to, they just haven't learned a different way.
That's true. Yeah, we don't know. We parent the way we were parented. It's attachment transfers within the first 3 years of life. By the time you're 3 years old, it's pre-verbal. You already have an attachment style of anxious, avoidant, insecure, or secure. So yeah, it's very subconscious until we bring that awareness about by healing ourselves, by going inward, by attuning to ourselves, learning how to attune to ourselves first. So when I learned how to make myself happy, when I learned to heal my trauma and connect to my body and be comfortable with who I was, and that brought me happiness, that's what transferred to my children. It's like, oh, that's what happiness feels like. It's being comfortable with who you are. And then you get to explore and discover who you are even more. And that's what brings us happiness. That's what brought me happiness.
It's really diving into that, and what a great place to come from. It's just so empowering.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Because, the opposite of that, disempowering or feeling helpless or weak, is trying to please other people or trying to figure out what other people want you to be and then trying to be that. That's crazy making. That's, that's the way I lived most of my life. And that was the result of having post-traumatic stress disorder, trying to keep myself safe by trying to be what this person wants or that person wants. And it's exhausting. It causes anxiety and depression and eventually just giving up and isolating myself.
Is that what tends to happen if we don't address our trauma as we go through life? It just kind of grows and grows and grows?
Exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. It builds and builds and builds. And it turns into generalized anxiety disorder, depression, mental illness problems. It just builds, and it's because of that stress, that chronic stress, and then it goes into our body and causes chronic illness. Like I had obesity and diabetes and arthritis and irritable bowel syndrome because that stress doesn't have anywhere to go, where it just keeps compounding and compounding. And but that's the bad news. The good news is that we can change it all around. Our minds and our bodies are very resilient. We have a lot of different pathways, of healing, and we're learning more and more about it now, how we can go back and start healing at that root issue. For me, it's going back to my 6-year-old self and reparenting myself, what I call reparenting myself, and healing at that root injury. And then the body responds beautifully. And your body wants you to heal. Your body wants you to feel good and to be healthy. And for me, when I reconnected to my body, I've started to build trust within myself that my body can take care of me, can heal. And I believe that. I believe that my body, works with my mind, and together we can live a healthy life mentally and physically.
How encouraging is that? Because I can just imagine that there are a lot of people who have gone through traumas during their childhood. In fact, I've gone through that. I think everyone does. And you
Yeah,
look at it going like, hey, how can I heal from all of this? But the fact that, you still can at any point, I think is really encouraging.
it is. That's the good news. That's the good news. That's the main message, that I want to get out to people is it's never too late. It's never too late. You can heal, you can feel better, you can live a vibrant, happy life today. You just start where you're at and start taking, taking that control back or giving that control back to your body. And where we have a lot of our control is in our breath rhythms. And that's where I start that's how I start teaching my clients how to take back control or give back control to your body, how to connect to your body's natural resources is through changing your breath rhythms, because your breath rhythms have a direct effect on your nervous system. When you're scared, you either stop breathing or you like take in a breath, you go like that, or your breath goes really shallow. When you're sleeping, your breath goes steady, slow, deep in and out. And you can control that.
Well, what a great resource that people can use to move beyond what's happening and get that help to move beyond and heal with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that when people come to you most of the time to work, that the transgenerational trauma is like the number one thing they see you for?
Probably not. Most of my clients know that they do have trauma, that they're aware. Unlike me, I didn't know I even had childhood trauma. But most of my clients do know that they have childhood trauma. I think the awareness and shows like yours, where people are talking about how our childhoods do affect us into adulthood. So they are aware of it, but they're just not able to heal from it, or they've tried different things, or maybe they've tried talk therapy and it hasn't worked. I've had clients trying psychedelics. Psychedelics are also being researched right now to help people with post-traumatic stress disorder. So, some of my clients have tried that, but it's not long lasting. So they're looking for getting to that root, getting to the place where they can continue to heal every day and get better and better.
What a great thing to do. I know in your book, you talk about treating, we talk about treating everything as this as a mental problem with a spiritual solution. What does that mean?
Oh, for me, it was, you might have heard the term spiritual bypass. That's how I kind of consider what I was doing. So I was using spiritual practices to heal an emotional injury. And I was bypassing my body. That's that's the framework that I look at it. I was bypassing my body and going straight to prayer, going to church, reading my Bible, practicing forgiveness and kindness, which are good things. These are all good things, but I was bypassing my body. And the problem with that is that's a big part of who we are. And if I bypass my body, how can I live my life in the present? So I lived my life in more of an escape of I would hope that I wasn't afraid of death. I hope that I could be in heaven where there was no pain and no sorrow. And I was bypassing the pain and the sorrow that was in my body, and I just didn't want to feel it. And that's what caused my post-traumatic stress disorder, and it didn't work. I mean, it didn't work in the long run. Not for me, it didn't anyway. I just, got worse and worse. So emotionally and mentally, I got worse, and physically too. So yeah, it just didn't work. So that's how I viewed what happened to me, or how I tried to heal an emotional injury from using spiritual practices, which are good. I'm not saying they're not good, but you can't bypass the body. That doesn't work, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think, the spiritual practice is a great thing. But when you talk about not bypassing the body, is that what you mean by the mindfulness meditation and kind of going inward?
Yes. Yes. Going inward and feeling physical sensations like pulsing, feeling your heart beating, feeling your body breathing, noticing pressure, tightness, temperature, because all these sensations in our body are sending us messages about how we feel. And how we feel are our emotions, right? When you ask somebody, how are you feeling? And they might say, oh, I'm feeling a little down. I'm feeling a little sad. Well, how do they know that? They know that because their stomach feels, nauseous, or their shoulders feel droopy, or they feel tightness in their chest, or it's these physical sensations. The whole constellation sends us a message of how we're feeling. And so, if we don't go inward and we don't feel those physical sensations, and the problem is they're not all positive. That's my knees ache and my stomach's tight, and my heart aches, or there's pain in my neck. So they're not all positive. And so and when I practice my spiritual practices, I would try and ignore all that, and because I just focused on trying to be positive. But I didn't know how I was really feeling. I was pretending that I was feeling good, but inside my body, felt really bad. I had tightness and nausea and aches and pains that were trying to send me the message that something's wrong. And I was ignoring those messages. So, yeah, it's a practice of going inward and feeling not just the positive, but the negative feelings and sensations as well. And just feeling it, just being and feeling those sensations, and you're going to be okay. It's okay. You can handle it. You can handle the negative sensations. It doesn't feel good, but the way to heal it is to feel it and keep breathing through it and breathing with it. And then your body will heal you. Your body will take care of those aches and pains.
How encouraging is that? I think a lot of times when people feel that, that kind of icky feeling, they're like, ugh, I don't want to feel that. Let's avoid it,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, what I tell my clients is like, well, if your child fell and skinned their knees, like right in front of you, you're just standing there, and your child's running towards you, and they fall and skin their knees and start crying. What do you do? Do you turn around and run away from your child? No, you run towards them, and you pick them up, and you hold them, and you comfort them, and you put band-aids on their owies, and you say, oh, that hurts, and then the body heals itself. You can't, as the parent, you don't magically take the heal the scratches. It's the child's body that heals the scratches. All you do is you run towards them, and you pick them up, and you love them, and you hold them, and you comfort them. And that's what we do when we go inward and we feel that pain inside of us. It's like we're just connecting to it, and holding it, and loving it, and validating it. Like, oh yeah, that hurts inside. And that's all you do, and then your body will heal.
Yeah, it sounds probably so simple that people don't think it works, right?
Yeah, it works though. It really does. I mean,
I can
I've seen it.
see.
I've done it so many times with so many clients that, I've built up that trust.
So, Dorothy, where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
It's really simple. It's my website. So just go to it's my name. So Dorothy Husen, DorothyHusen.com.
I understand you have a free gift for our listeners.
Oh, yes. That's a few audio files, and I will guide you through how to breathe, process anger and pain, how to breathe to get grounded, these different breath rhythms that you can learn, and I'll guide you through those. And you can get that on my website as well.
Well, Dorothy, thank you for being on the show with us here today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Dorothy. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Breaking the Chains of Transgenerational Trauma. Dorothy's book is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, of course, ask for them to order it. And remember to support our indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.